Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome. Good to have you guys with us. It's Minka, Shanice, and Tanda, and I'm not quite sure where the rest of the group are. I should also note that I literally about 10 minutes ago received an email from Varsity College with an updated class list, and our class list has now gone from 8 in the class to 16 in the class, so it's doubled in size. So it's a bit late. It was a bit late to send them notice of our chat tonight, so we'll just obviously record it and I'll send them out in the morning the link to the recordings for this. Can I just confirm with can you give me a thumbs up or a hello in the text chat just to confirm you're hearing me all right? Great, thanks. You got that. And I'm just going to share the screen as well. Let me just get that going. Let's come back to there. Thanks. I'm going to share the screen and I'll just make it the entire screen. Okay, so if you've got any questions or comments, just you're welcome to just unmute and chat or type anything in the chat box. But what I'm going to do is just run through specifically tonight the first section of the assignment, what's due on the 29th of March. So I will also obviously have another session between now and then because there's meant to be an official NSS or national support session. So yeah, let's just run through things. The first couple of slides are a repeat from what we did on Monday night. Just to note the breakdown of marks, there are 4 ICE tasks which I will send out or upload in due course. And don't worry too much about those. They'll be relatively straightforward, and that's worth 10%. Then POE task 1, as we've said, is due on the 29th of March and is worth 25% of the total mark. POE task 2 is due on the 23rd of May, and the final task or task 3 of the POE is with 35% due on the 15th of June. So the national support sessions, once I've got confirmation of those dates, but actually what I cover in the national support session will be more or less the same as what I'm doing tonight as far as each submission is concerned. So that's why I'm doing this now anyway, is you've still got 2 weeks to go, and we'll just have the national support session when the due date comes around, and it'll be an opportunity to just refresh, go through the stuff again, as well as answer any questions or specific issues you've got. Just a reminder as well, make sure you either check your VC address regularly, or better still put an auto forward onto your VC address so that it shows up automatically in your own regular email account, whatever that is, if it's a Gmail account or a work account that you work with regularly. Then the whole assignment, tasks 1, 2, and the final task or task 3, are all based on the chosen scenario. And you're given 3 to choose from. As we said on Monday, there's the Information Insight College Expansion Project, or there's the Project Management SA Conference, the kind of banquet for that, or your own project, which you must get clearance from me for. Please send me some details about that and get confirmation prior to using your own project. And also just to note, for option 3, you may not use a project from previous assignments. If you did this course or a variation of this course last year or in previous years, there were certain scenarios given there. You may not use those. It needs to be one of these scenarios for your own project. And then you choose one and work with it all the way through the assignment. Please make sure you read things carefully. As we've seen, the assignment, the first project, or the first scenario rather, this expansion project, read it carefully. It's got a budget of 5 million to be done over 11 months with a minimum of 5 people. The Project Management SA Conference Banquet, that's got a budget of just under R1 million, 950,000. 6 months, minimum of 5 people working on it. And then your own project, they're putting a limit of no more than R1 million, 6 months, minimum of 5 people. Now, while we're there, I just want to quickly run through, and hopefully you can see this as well. I want to run through these options fairly quickly and to just give you guidance on these. Okay, I'm just going to kind of read through it. Information Insights, a college that was established in 2015. It's a leading ICT center, offering a range of certificates and qualifications. It's been 6 years since it was built. There's been a lot of change. Their numbers are growing and they want to expand to include new classrooms, new laboratories and offices to accommodate their new numbers. Your company, JK Building Contractors, was the original company that built it back in 2014, and now you've been given a chance to basically bid for this work. So the information that you've been given, and here's the spec you need to look at, is the excavation and foundation on the neighboring land to the college. So this is included in what you have to do in the project. So part of the spec is excavation and foundations, and there's 5,000 square meters of land has been allocated. The building will be 3 floors high, so it's a ground floor, first floor, and second floor. The ground floor is reserved for reception area, 3 meeting rooms, 20 offices that are open plan, and a lunch area. First floor is for classrooms. The college would like a minimum of 10 classrooms that are able to accommodate 60 people, and 60 people each, and 4 classrooms that could accommodate 30 people each. And then the second floor is for the laboratories. They are basically the computer labs with lots of computers in. They would like 12 of those, and they should be able to accommodate 60 people per laboratory. Materials, labor, equipment, other resources will either need to be bought or hired through the contracting company, so that comes into your budget. All certificates needed for the construction of this new premises will be compiled by the contractors along with the administration of the college. So again, that's part of the project then, getting the certificates, and that might be kind of the engineering approvals, tech, what else, planning permissions, possibly even some environmental permissions, and then possibly things like electricity approvals and water and sewer lines connected as well. So the contracting company is responsible for the building of the premises, installation of lighting, doors, windows, etc., but not for the installation of any of the equipment in the offices, classrooms, or labs. So you don't have to supply desks and chairs and computers and projectors and cupboards and boardroom tables. So it's none of the furnishings. It's just the kind of the fixtures such as lighting and doors and windows. It's the structure itself, the building itself. The college has also made you aware the expected budget is 5 million, and the duration, as we've said, is 11 months, including the handover. And then there's 5 people there. Adequate assumptions and requirements may be added and referenced with reason to their addition. So you can anything else you want to add to the kind of specification of the project, you can make up and add, provided it sounds vaguely realistic. Now, I'm not going to go and check. If you, for instance, in the budget, work out that you need so many bags or tons of cement at a certain price, I'm not going to go and check the price of cement and say, oh, no, you were completely wrong with your cement price. It should sound kind of ballpark figure right, but that's not what I'm marking. I'm not going to be marking and assessing the, how can I put it, the content of your project. I'm going to be looking at how you are managing and showing how you are managing the project. So can you use the tools and techniques of project management to plan and implement this project? So what I'm just trying to highlight is, don't fuss about the specific details of the project itself and what each thing costs and so on. It's more about the management of the project that we're looking at. Okay, then project option 2 is the Project Management South Africa Conference has once again decided to hold an in-person event in the coming months Your company, New Media SA, an events and catering management company, has been awarded to bid for the contract to manage the banquet on the last evening of the conference. So you're not doing the whole conference, you're just doing the banquet. It says here in brackets, currently, there are only 2 companies being looked at, and from experience with the team handling the conference, New Media SA seems to be in good standing to be awarded the contract. So kind of assume you're going to get it, but when it comes to, well, there isn't a proposal or feasibility, so that is not a problem. So basically go ahead as if you've got the project. So part of what your company is expected to do includes plan and drop the program for the evening of the banquet. You've also got to invite the delegates, select the guests and the sponsors for the event, provide meals. So dinner, the meal is in the budget and part of the planning of this event. Plan, prepare and arrange the banquet hall, the seating plan, preparation and installation to be outsourced, but it would be included in the budget. Plan and arrange the entertainment for the evening, the photography team, security would come into it, looking at parking, surroundings, the entrance, and then guests will need to be transported to and from the event venue from their hotels. And there I would suggest you look at a portion of the guests coming to the event from their hotels. Some might be local. So you might want to split it, I don't know, half-half or something like that. So there would be a certain proportion of the guests coming to this event who would be local residents and wouldn't be staying in hotels and could use their own transport. So it doesn't have to be all of the 500 guests as far as transport is concerned. Then some following information. The budget for the banquet, as we said, is 950. There's going to be a minimum of 500 guests, and you could expand it to 650 if you want to, so 150 more than the 500. The project duration must not exceed 6 months. That includes the evening of the banquet and a few days after the function to complete the closing of the project, the wrapping up and the analysis of it and so on. And again, 5 members for the project. Adequate assumptions and requirements may be added and referenced with reasons to their additions. Again, so else you want to add as flavor or additional substance and detail to your project, you're welcome to use your imagination and add in whatever else you want. Again, like the previous project, provided it sounds and is vaguely realistic. You're not going to talk about every guest is going to get a brand new camera and trip for 2 to Disneyland, all in this budget. You hear what I'm saying? If you're not going to make wild, crazy things that just wouldn't fit. So keep it vaguely realistic in terms of the way it's structured. But as I said earlier, I'm not going to go through item for item and check the costs of every little thing. It's more about going through the flow of planning the project. And then your own project, as we've said, if you choose this, you will need to provide details of the project in an introduction before you start answering the questions. So you need to describe the project to the person reading this, who will be me. You need to describe this project that you've chosen. As I've said, I'd also like you to send me details soon. If you're using your own project, please send me details, I would say in the next week or so, not later than that, so that I can confirm whether your own project fits the bill or not. I'd like to sign it off. I won't mark it at that point. I'll simply say, yeah, that's a suitable project. You can use that for your assignment. So that's looking at it that way. So I'm just getting a message in from one of the class here. And I'm just responding, saying, okay. Okay, that's cool. So as we see for this project, the budget is shouldn't be more than R1 million, shouldn't last longer than 6 months. So we're not talking about building a mega stadium or a huge shopping mall or something like that. We're talking about a small to medium sized project. So again, you can add in your own stuff to that. And as it says here at the top, if you're using your own project, please provide a description of it as part of your assignment. You need to do that. Okay, so that is those are the scenarios you can choose from. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. So then just to give you an overview again of the questions, first section that we're going to talk about tonight is worth 25% of the overall final course mark. It looks at project complexity, selecting the project and the phases of a project, and then the second part of the first section that's due at March is to do a team charter and a project charter. So I'm going to chat through that now, but just to confirm, the second part, which is due in May, this involves a work breakdown structure, a project budget, a Gantt chart, and a network diagram and critical path. And then the third part, which will be due in June, I think it is, yeah. That involves really just a risk register. That's the bulk of the work. And then some feedback and follow up to what you've done before in terms of resubmission of task 1 and 2 with corrections, task discussion, reflection report. It's really just the risk register. And as I said on Monday night, I think, you know, this risk register, if you put, you know, a reasonable amount of work into that, there's all the marks handed to you. It should be very easy to get some decent marks there. It's not that complicated, and you should be able to do that pretty simply. So the last section of this assignment, or this POE, will be relatively simple. The bulk of the work is in section 2, and then with a fair bit of work in section 1, which is due at the end of March. Right, let's come to activity 1, which is due on the 29th of March, in 2 weeks from now. It says here, read through and research each of the project options that have been given and answer the questions that follow. And now it's kind of, they give this introduction section to this question, and then the actual question comes below, which we'll come to now. But let's first look at these criteria. So read through and look at your project options, which is the 3 scenarios. Then assess the project complexity by evaluating the project attributes using any 6 criteria from the list below. End product required, life cycle size for cost, life cycle duration for schedule, technology readiness, risk, visibility, tools required, project stakeholders, and authorization basis, not bias, basis. So those are sort of 8 or 9 criteria. You must choose any 6 of those and do an evaluation. Now here's the actual question. Here's what you must do. Conduct a project complexity evaluation based on any 2 of the 3 project options provided. So out of the 3 that are provided, there's the ICT College Expansion Project, or there's the Project Management Conference Banquet, or your own project. Choose any 2 of those and compare them in terms of complexity using 6 of those criteria that were on this list here. So there's that list. And I'm going to come to those now. Using that list of, you choose any 6 of these, and using those 6, you evaluate any 2 of the 3 projects. So it can either be your own project plus one of the ones from the thing, or those 2 from the assignment, from the question paper. Note it says your evaluations must show an understanding of the level of complexity, both qualitative and quantitative complexity, and refer to the marking rubric provided at the end of the POE. Now, here's the twist in the tail. Project complexity is not specifically covered in the textbook, and so I'm going to send you a table to give you guidance, and you can also Google it a bit. Now, I'm going to send you this table in WhatsApp and email, and let me just run through it. What it does is it breaks down projects into either low complexity or medium complexity or high complexity. This looks quite complicated, but it's not as bad as it looks. There are 3 columns at the top. Each one is either low complexity or medium complexity or high complexity. Now, down the left-hand side are all the 9 criteria. Yeah, the 9 of them, 9 criteria that are given, and you can choose any 6 of these. Now, what you need to do is, using this as a basis, I'm recommending you use this as a basis. You then discuss any 2 of the 3 projects and compare those projects, analyzing the projects, looking at the details in terms of these criteria. Now, let me just run through these criteria to give you some guidance, because as I said, it's not in the textbook. And interestingly, these criteria, most of them I couldn't find, even Googling them, I couldn't find them listed as they are kind of listed in this question, in any kind of Google search. I did come across something, but it was I kind of had to put this table together to give some guidance. So the first criteria is end product required. Now, I've just kind of made up these parameters or these guidelines under these 3 columns. I would say a low complexity project is one where the end product is simple, a single function, a single purpose, or a single outcome. Now, look at the projects in terms of, is it a functional output? Is it a structure that you're building? Is it a service you're offering? What is it that you're providing, and evaluate it in terms of complexity of that end product. So low complexity would be simple, single purpose. Let me just try and get, if I can. Yeah, it's not letting me use this is very annoying. With it sharing the screen, it's not letting me use the annotation tool. I can't draw on this. Okay, so I'm up at the top left here. So it's end product required. It would be simple, single function, a single purpose, or a single outcome. Then a medium complexity project, in my opinion, would be something that has 2 or 3 functions or purposes or outcomes, the end product. A high complexity project would have many functions, purposes, or outcomes. If you were building something, low complexity would be a house, a residential home. It's got 3 or 4 bedrooms. It's a kind of a single purpose facility. Compare that to a place like a casino, like I'll use, for example, Suncoast Casino in Durban. That would be high complexity, because it's not just a casino. There's a food court, there's restaurants, there's cinemas, there's a few shops, there's a hotel, upmarket hotel, then there's the promenade and the beach area that were all part of the hotel development, and then there's theaters, and a whole variety of other things that are thrown in. So it is a building contract, it's a building project, but the end product is a multi-purpose facility, and that would make it high complexity. So if you see what I mean by low, medium, or high in terms of end product required, that's what we're looking at. Now, when it says life cycle size for cost, they're basically saying what's the budget, and I'm suggesting, and you can change these if you want to. You can change these parameters as you want to. This is not a fixed table that you have to lock all of your projects into. This is just a kind of a guideline to guide your thinking on what complexity might be. A budget of less than $1 million would be something that's fairly low complexity. A budget of 1 to 5 million might be something of medium complexity, and a high complex project would be more than 5 million rand. Now, I'm saying that in the context of the 3 projects we've been given to work with, and the guidelines we've already been given to work with. Just stepping into real life for the moment, if you were one of the big construction companies in South Africa, for you, a project of less than maybe 20 million rand would be low complexity. That would be a small project for you, and you could do it, kind of in your sleep. And a big project that might be worth 5 or 10 billion rand would be a high complexity project. So I'm putting these parameters in here of less than 1 million, 1 to 5 million, and more than 5 million in the context of complexity and analyzing it for the projects we are working with and that you have available to you, the 3 projects. So it's life cycle, size for cost, which is the money. Life cycle in terms of duration is how long is the project. And again, I'm saying a simple project, low complexity would be, a really short project, less than 3 months and 6 months. And again, I mean, available online for this. Technology readiness refers to what technology is involved in as well. And low complexity would be using technology that's been proven, used many times. It's a mature technology. It's been in the market for maybe 5 or 6 years or more. Everyone's familiar with it. It's been proven and tested, and it's not at all risky. A medium complexity might be relatively new technology, but it's not well tested. It's fairly new in the market. And so there's a little bit of risk attached to using that, and it makes your project a little more complex. And then a high complexity technology would be something that's never been tested before. It's really not available yet. You are developing it for the project, and it's going to raise the stakes in terms of risk. Now, looking at the 2 projects that we know of, which is the banquet and the construction project, technology doesn't really impact on those, because you're organizing a banquet, and unless, for instance, on the banquet you're going to use some fancy new booking system for the guests that's never been used anywhere else in the world. No one knows about it. It's an app-based thing that you are developing yourselves. That might make it more complex, but I'm suggesting, don't go down that road. You would use more conventional methods. So technology readiness is probably not a very good or very relevant criterion to use in relation to complexity for the projects that we are looking at. If, on the other hand, you are going to use one of your own projects and that involves some kind of technology that's new and untested, then you would include it here. Similarly, risk actually applies across most of these, because that's what we're looking at in terms of, how is complexity going to affect the risk of the project. Are there a lot of risks involved? Now, a low complexity project would have very low risks and what I call non-impact risks. They're things that won't really sink the boat. It won't make a big difference to, some things might go wrong, but it's not going to impact on the project a great deal. Then medium complexity would be some risks that would have some kind of fairly serious impact on the project. It might lead to delays or cost overruns, but it's not going to break the whole project. And then high complexity would be where there are risks that would have a high cost and or impact on your project, very severe, and whatever those risks might be. Now, just before I carry on, what you would have to do is take 2 of the 3 projects and be talking about the details of that project in relation to 6 of these 9 elements. Okay, so you've got to unpack it in terms of giving examples and talking about the practicalities and the real details of the project in relation to these criteria that you choose. So, we're not talking of, you mustn't be talking just the theory of this complexity analysis. You've actually got to do the analysis on 2 of the 3 projects in order to come up with the next question's answer, which is which project are you going to select out of the 2 projects you're analyzing. So that's risk. Visibility is an interesting one in terms of complexity. Another word for it might be reputation. What impact would this project have on your organization or your department's reputation, and it's visible. Is the project highly visible or not very visible to many people? Because the more visible it is, the more you stand to lose. And so you want to, a low complexity project would be a project that's kind of internal just to your department or section. And if the project goes wrong, it's not going to be a major train smash for, just your department. So again, these are guideline parameters to use, or boundaries around these elements. So with visibility, I've said low complexity might be internal to your department. So it's just kind of the project sits within your department. Medium complexity would be internal to your organization. So it's a project that the whole of your organization or company is aware of. And if it was to go wrong, it would affect the organization as a whole. And then a high complexity project would be a project that's very public, very well known. And if it goes wrong, it's I'll give you an example again from the Durban area. There's the Go Durban bus system that's meant to be implemented. If you're in the Joburg area, you've got Rea Vaya. In Cape Town, there's My City, which are these public transport systems, new bus systems. Durban's meant to have had one of its own. It's been half built. One of the routes has been half built in terms of all the platforms and stations, and it's still not running, and it's now 5, 6, 7 years after it was meant to be launched, and it's still sitting there unused and a waste of taxpayers' money. It's a very high visibility project because the municipality made a big song and dance about this new system that was coming, and it's a failure. Can you imagine a project like Gautrain being half built and then just collapsing and being left half built, and there's half built bridges and tunnels everywhere? And after all the fanfare about Gautrain, and we're going to have this fancy new high system that'll link to Joburg and all the rest, and then suddenly it goes on, that would be a high visibility and therefore a highly complex project. From a visibility point of view, it makes it a lot of a big risk. Tools required to do the project, and this is just very roughly saying the tools required are few and simple. I mean, I think, for example, my guess is that organizing a banquet for the conference would fit into the low complexity column for this criterion. Tools required, it's really just a handful of people doing planning of the event. You haven't got lots of technology and stuff being used. So few tools and fairly simple to use. Medium complexity would be some tools, a few more, and of medium complexity to use. And then high complexity would be, lots of different systems and tools to use, both physical and kind of software, IT, people management systems, etc. You'd have many different systems, and they are complicated to use. Again, let's use Gautrain as an example. That would be very high complexity because you've got tunneling machines that are needed, because half of, well, I don't know, half, less than half, probably a quarter, maybe a third of Gautrain's route is underground. And then you've got all the bridge construction. There was a lot of land expropriation and relocating businesses and stuff. And all of the systems that had to go into that. So that would be a great example of a very highly complicated project from the point of view of tools required. Stakeholders. Very simply, this is just a low complexity project. Would be there are a few stakeholders, and it's kind of just the internal team. Medium complexity would be stakeholders come from across your organization, and a high complexity project would be one where there's lots of external stakeholders as well as the internal team. So, there are lots of different organizations and people and systems involved. Like a big project would involve, lots of government departments, health and safety departments, communities, non-profit organizations, possibly residents associations, You hear what I'm saying? Lots of different stakeholders who are affected by your project and might object to it. Whereas a small, low complexity project is no one else is really affected. It's just kind of your own project team who have to run this project and get it sorted. And then the authorization bias is a little bit similar, but it's internal to your department. Who gets to authorize the project? Who signs it off? So who's the key person behind the project? It might be an internal departmental thing or within your own section. Medium complexity, I'd say, within the organization itself, and maybe one external client. And a high complexity project is where you're answering to a client that's got a few people you have to. A couple of years ago, where again with Durban municipality, it was a big, fairly complicated, and it involved us as a project team answering to probably 8 or 10 different people within the municipality, and that made it quite difficult from a stakeholder point of view and from an authorization point of view, because every time we wanted to sneeze, we had to ask permission from 5 or 6 different people, and it was a real challenge. Okay, I'm going to send this table to you probably this evening, and over the next few days, chew on it and see if it's sufficient and gives you some guidance. Alternatively, do some Googling on project complexity. And by the way, remember, when you Google stuff and you look at stuff, keep a copy of the website you've visited and the date you visited it, and put that into your reference list. Okay, so if you're using information off the internet, even if you don't directly quote from that website, but it helped you put together your thinking for any of the questions. If you go to websites that assist you in submitting your answer, even if you don't directly quote, keep just copy the URL. I'm gonna give you an example because I'm sharing the screen here. So let's go here, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna say project team charter. I'm hoping you can see this, and let's say I go website for me, and there's some stuff, and let's say I find this quite useful, and I might not quote from it directly, but it's helped my thinking. All you do is go to the top and you copy this. Okay, let's get rid of the pop-ups. So I go there, I copy it, and I would just open a Word document, and I will put in there the website, and I might put the name of the website. So let's go back there. What is the name of the website? It's projectmanager.com. Okay, so this is for your bibliography or for your reference, sorry. Projectmanager.com, that should be one word. And then, what's it doing this to me? And then the date on which I visited it, which would be 16 March 2022. Okay. And if you can find out who the author is or the institution that runs that website, you should also include that. So look at the guidelines of putting together your list of references or your bibliography. But what I'm suggesting is every time you visit a website, put in particularly this link here, the URL or the website address. And you just copy and paste that, and keep this in a separate document. And when it comes to putting your references together, you just list those that you visited and that you used and that were helpful to you. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's come back to the PowerPoint slides. Okay, so what I'm suggesting is take this table, chew on it, do some Googling, and use it and some other information you might find to help you answer this question, which is the first question in the assignment. And what we can do is we're gonna have a collab session next week, probably on Wednesday evening. And what I'm suggesting is come with your questions to that session if you want any further clarity. So, because by then you should have begun to get a bit of a handle on stuff. Now the second question following after your evaluation. It says this, question 1.1.2. Based on your evaluation in 111, state the project you are going to choose to continue with for the rest of the parts of this assignment and provide the reasoning for your choice. Note the reason for the choice made should be argued based on the conclusion of the project complexity evaluation. So at the end of your evaluation, you say, based on this, it's our conclusion that this project is more complex than the other, or and explain, give a bit of detail for that. And then also look at project selection, and you must demonstrate some understanding of the project selection process, which is addressed in the textbook. Okay, so that's worth 6 marks. So it's not as much as the complexity evaluation. So just always remember the mark allocation in terms of what effort and time you put into each of these questions. But you should give, and again, the marking rubrics are there. So it gives you very clear direction on what to provide in your answers. Use the rubrics, please. So you have a discussion here, and out of this discussion, you're saying, as a result of this, from the 2 projects we evaluated in terms of complexity, I am choosing this project for these reasons. Now, you have to choose the least complex project. It might be that you want to choose a project that's more complex because that your company is has got the capacity to do this, can run that project. You're comfortable and confident doing that. You hear what I'm saying? You need to, whichever way you argue, there isn't a right answer that you should have. You must always choose the cheapest project or the least complex project or whatever. You can argue it whichever way you want to, provided those arguments are rational and make sense to the person reading it. Okay, so that's question 1.1.2. And then 1.1.3 is a kind of a separate question. So it's using examples and the project option you have selected in 112. Explain what each of the project phases below will involve. It's the 4 phases of, or the 5 phases of a project: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and control, which runs throughout the whole project, all the other phases, and then project closing. And what I'm giving as guidance here is obviously see pages 16 to 18 of the textbook, and also do some basic internet research, right? Do a discussion of the project, apply. So you must look at what would be involved in each of these phases for the project you've chosen. Okay, so you apply this so discuss the project in terms of its phasing. As I've said, look at pages 16 to 18 of the textbook, and then and by the way, what's in the textbook is relatively short and simple. You might also want to do some Google and further and theory. And if you do Googling phases of projects, you will get lots and lots of information that will help you discuss further around your project that you've chosen. So that's 113. Then question 2, which is for 20 marks. And this is what's called the team charter. It says the following: besides the project charter that is developed as part of the undertaking of a project, the team charter is also an important document in undertaking. For this question, question 2.1, the following items are in part related to the contents and development of the team charter. Using your chosen project, explain the following items' purpose, then provide the content that would be part of that section of the team charter. So what they're saying here, let me emphasize this very clearly. You must write a team charter for your project under these 4 headings: composition, value statement, mission statement, and operations. Now, again, I was a bit frustrated because the textbook doesn't give a lot of information. And when I delved a bit further, My conclusion is that the word positioning doesn't exist in a team charter. I don't know what positioning is in a team charter. It's actually what's the composition of the team. So who is in the team and why? Okay, so what is your project team, or who is your project team composed of? So I'm changing that word to composition. All right, so you discuss it under the phrase composition. Then discuss value statements. So what are the values of the team? And do some Googling around that. And a team charter is a relatively short document. It might be 1 to 2 pages, probably just 1 page for these things, maybe 1.5. I don't know. It depends on how dense your writing is. But the composition is who is in your team and why. The value statement would be what are the values of the team, and you can discuss any values you like. I mean, most of us are familiar with the kind of values that go organizations these days. Things like as I've said before, right answer here. You must generate the content of your team charter as if you're a team of people sitting together and saying, what do we as a team agree to? Because that's what a team charter is. It's you as a team agreeing to the statement that we all sign on the bottom line here, that's saying we as a team sign on to this charter. We are agreeing to and standing by this charter. Who's in the team and why? What are our values? What is our mission statement? That's the third one. So what's the purpose of the team? And it would link to obviously to the purpose of the project itself. So your mission statement would be linked very closely to the purpose of the project. And then an operation statement is, how are you going to operate as a team on a day-to-day basis? So this has to do with things like meeting times, contents of meetings, who should do what in the admin and running of the project. So it's not the implementation of the project, it's how you as a team are going to kind of run and administer the project. So how are you going to operate as a team and the kind of logistics around that? So there's 5 for each of those. Again, the rubric gives a lot more kind of clarity around that. Okay, so that's question 2, team charter. And then the last one, I'm not going to go into detail here because it's very clearly given in 2 places. It's a project charter for your project. It's clearly described on page 81 of the textbook, and it is also clearly spelled out in the mark annotation. In fact, yeah, it's page, let me just confirm. Yeah, page 81 of the textbook, and then in the project discussion in the question paper, was actually given. Let me just scroll down here. It is your charter. You're required to develop the charter. Now you must write the charter. You mustn't discuss the theory of what a project charter is. You must do the project charter. And by the way, the charter can just be 1 to 1.5, maybe 2 pages. They give a very brief, short sample or example in the textbook. I would put a little bit more information in than what's given in that example in the textbook. And again, that's on page, let me tell you where, page 82. Page 82, they give an example. I would put in a little bit more info than what's given in that brief sample, but it would maybe be 1.5 to 2 pages team charter. You must write not the team charter, the project charter. It's a relatively short, brief document giving a brief discussion under each of these headings. So the charter should contain the following sections: title, purpose, high-level description, objectives, success criteria, funding, deliverables, milestones, constraints, authority of the project manager, and approval signatures indicating the sponsor. Okay, and then overall, there's some marks at the end for the overall kind of feel of it. Now, that is given in the question itself, and then the marking rubric gives you a similar breakdown, and that's on page 29 to 31 of the assignment. So there's a good rubric there as well. So watch what the question asks for, watch what the rubric says you should provide, and then read the description on page 81, and then do some very quick Googling. I tell you, you can Google Project Charter, and within the first page of results, you will get some excellent kind of extra kind of tips and ideas on how you could put the charter together. But stick to the headings that have been requested. That's what I would suggest in your assignment. Okay, I've kind of wrapped up as far as part one of the assignment is concerned. Are there any questions from you guys? Let me come back to here. Let's just stop sharing and close that. Is my signal all right? Sorry, I'm just coming up with the questions. Okay, Shani's saying that all good. And then you're saying, do we make two different tables? Or what is expected? Sorry, Shanice, in relation to what is that? Which question? Is that for the complexity question?
Hey Tim, can you hear me? Hey Tim, can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, I can hear you now. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm talking about the
Yes, can you hear me?
complexity. Yes, yes, I can. I was talking about the complexity question.
Okay, let me just go back to sharing and share the entire screen. And let's just go back here. And you're referring to this table. What I'm suggesting is that you use this table as a guideline. You don't have to, this would be the kind of basis of your discussion, but I would be very happy for you to just discuss each project in terms of these criteria and in terms of the columns that I've given for each of these. So you don't have to generate a table for your complexity. You don't need to submit this table for the two projects that you discuss. I don't know if that helps or answers your question. But that's where I would go with that. Hello?
Yes, hello Tim. Okay, thank you. Yes, now I understand. Thank you.
Good. Okay,
Yes,
great.
thank you.
Pleasure. Any other questions from anyone? So what I'm suggesting is we meet again next Wednesday and start working on this, start putting together your thoughts, start writing stuff for this part of the assignment. And then we'll just, next Wednesday, I will be available and we can chat through whatever you want. I'll do a kind of a refresher of stuff, and any questions you've got in relation to the work you're doing, then we can chat through those questions. Moment is Quinn and Shanice. Okay. Yeah, some others had network problems. I know one of the class was quite sick, but we have recorded and we'll send out the recording. Cool. Okay, if you've got no questions or comments for now, then good night. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. And you're welcome to sign off and disappear. So have a good week, guys. And on that, I'm going to end the recording. So We'll see you next Wednesday, which will be the 23rd.